Straight on to Libya now. In the heaviest day of bombardment since the beginning of the 11-week campaign against Libya, NATO warplanes launched more than 80 airstrikes on Tripoli, the capital, and destroyed much of the area around the compound of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, according to news reports. The attacks went on from Tuesday morning into early Wednesday. International pressure on Libya's leader to step down intensified, but Colonel Gaddafi vowed to fight to the death. According to the New York Times, quote, a Libyan official said Tuesday night that the attacks killed 31 people and wounded dozens more, many of them security guards and totally innocent civilians. But that number could not be confirmed, unquote. On Monday, the New York Times raised questions about the plight of civilians and the number of casualties resulting from the airstrikes. They reported, quote, visits to bombing sites, hospitals and funerals have produced a succession of blunders, including patients identified as bombing victims who turned out not to be, empty coffins at funerals, and burials where some of those interred turned out not to be airstrike victims at all, unquote. Our next guest is the Honourable Cynthia McKinney, former Congresswoman from Georgia and former Green Party candidate for president, and is with a fact-finding team in Libya right now. And they've conducted interviews with civilians in hospitals, and they say what they've discovered tells a very different story. Cynthia McKinney joins us live now. Good morning. Welcome to Wake Up Call.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, and you're absolutely correct that I am in Tripoli right now. I am at the headquarters of the fact-finding, the non-governmental fact-finding commission that was established to bring people in, of course at their own expense, to bring people in and to show them exactly what is happening in Tripoli so that they can become the voices of the truth, because we have experience with this. We know from various organizations that did the research inside the United States that 935 times the people of the United States and the global community were lied to by U.S. and other media in the ramp up to the war against Iraq.
So then let's go in on the detail of the interviews that you've conducted with civilians and what they say about what they've experienced. Just break down for us some of the people that you've actually spoken to and the stories that they're telling.
Well, of course, there's one video that is on the internet now. I presume that there's lots more because we have shot a lot of video. But from the hospital, I think people have been particularly touched by the scenes at the hospital. We viewed people, they told their stories, but we also saw their wounds. And now I'm going to do a little bit more research on this, but from what I saw of the reports of doctors who were there treating patients in Gaza, it appears that the wounds are similar of those that were experienced by people in Gaza after the use of dying weapons, and it's dense, inert metal, what the DIME stands for, and this is a particular type of weapon that is supposed to do more damage to the humans that come into contact with it. So I'm going to have to actually look at this a little bit more, but we've seen people who, with broken limbs, with amputations, with these particularized wounds that are reminiscent to me of what I saw in the doctor's report from Gaza. There is some question about the use of depleted uranium. And in one of the earlier reports that I wrote that I could actually taste. We were so close to the bombing site that I could actually taste the grit in my mouth, the dust. And of course, from the experiences of U.S. soldiers, we understand that it is the dust that is could be the source of the what has become known as the Iraq War syndrome. So this dust, and if it is contaminated with depleted uranium, which I think takes like tens of millions of years to be eliminated from the environment, this is very serious and very dangerous. And the contamination of the Libyan territory is something also to be discussed. But right now, people inside Libya are asking, or at least we're in Tripoli. And yesterday we were prevented from going on our trip, which was to take us outside of Tripoli, because, of course, we want to understand the impact of the bombing and the impact of NATO support for these racist rebels who are targeting, killing, attacking, maiming, particularly black Libyan citizens. And this whole idea is crazy, because how are you going to separate black people from Africa? How are you going to target black people in Africa when, you know, the whole idea is offensive to the Libyans themselves.
Congresswoman, I want you to break down for us what you've experienced on the ground in Libya and how your findings differ from those that are being reported in the mainstream media. Give us a bit more detail about that.
Well, I published a dispatch yesterday in the midst of the intense bombing raid.
Which said?
Because the bombing basically started at around 11 o'clock a.m. And I just happened to be at the hotel with the African Union fact-finding mission that has been sent here to understand just exactly what is going on here. This was a time that the African Union representatives were on the ground, and we counted up until approximately 11:30 last night. So for a period of 12 and a half hours, we counted 89 bombs and missiles. You can hear the aircraft overhead, or whatever it is. You can hear that we don't know if it's circling, trying to find the target or what, but you can hear the drone of the drone. Maybe it's a drone. We don't know what it is. And then the missiles have a particular sound, and then of course the bombs have a different kind of sound, and then of course there's the impact sound. So we counted 89 of those yesterday. Now, you are in New York City. So just imagine that 89 times either a bomb or a missile falls inside New York City. Now, the approximate population of the metropolitan Tripoli area is around 1.5 to 2 million people. So we're not talking about a sparsely populated area. We're talking about an area where people live. Now, what also has happened is that in their outrage, one of the places that we visited was the Bab al-Azizia compound of the residential compound where Muammar Gaddafi and his family lived. And, of course, in 1986, that is the site of the murder by the United States military of his daughter. And that compound is where people live now. They have moved into that compound. So when NATO says that they're bombing the compound, they're bombing the civilians who have moved in there because they are trying to defend that area from, from further attack. Unsuccessfully, of course, because NATO continues to pound and pound and pound that area, and they're pounding civilians who have moved there. They're tent cities. In fact, we went there every night. If you look at Libyan TV, every night you can see they have the equivalent of a block party there. And we went there one night, just about 2 nights ago. We went there, the night before yesterday. We went there and saw and recorded it's a block party kind of atmosphere. These are civilians. These are just average, ordinary people. And so now we want to go back there today, but of course we want to make sure that it's safe to go back.
So let's just go back. Let's just go back to let's just go back to the hospital, because I understand that you and a delegation have actually gone into the hospital and sat and spoken to those who are in hospital, those who are wounded. Take us in some more detail about what kinds of stories are they sharing with you? What things are they saying to you?
Well, probably the most poignant story is the story that's not told. It's the story of the young man who and maybe he blinked his eyes maybe twice. I don't know if he blinked at all. He's in a complete state of shock, and he can't speak. He doesn't speak. He doesn't do anything. He's just he was in the environment when there were 3 people with him. The other 2 people were killed. He was not killed, but he doesn't speak. He's in a complete state of shock. And there are shopkeepers we met, and all of this is available on the internet. Don DeBar, on his YouTube page, has captured all of this. The film was uploaded to him, and he has put it on the internet. I wish I could tell you exactly, but if you look up either Cynthia McKinney visits Tripoli Hospital or Don DeBar, you will be able to see all of the comments that were made by mostly young men. Some of them were shopkeepers, and they were in their businesses, and some of them were in their homes. Some of them saw or heard the bombing, and then they went out and see, this is what happened. So you go out, there's one bomb, then you go out and you see, look to see what happens, then the second bomb it gets you. And so a lot of them were victimized, became victims as a result of just doing what normal people do, either at their home. We visited the home next to the location of the murder of Saif al-Arab and the 3 grandbabies of Muammar Gaddafi. And the houses around that area were also damaged. Nobody's talking about that. They're uninhabited because they're uninhabitable. They were completely destroyed as well. So, this reminds me of what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. We have guided missiles and misguided men. We have an administration of misguided men and women who are visiting upon the innocent people. We have seen evidence of collective punishment. We want to go out to
describe that. You say you've seen evidence. You say you've seen evidence of collective punishment. Describe what you've seen.
Well, one of the things is the bombing in Tripoli. That's certainly collective punishment. And then, of course, the refusal to allow medicine and fuel in. So you will see, if you think 1973 inside the United States or something, you should see the lines of certain service stations have been set aside to service the needs of the minibuses. And, of course, since everyone here has a car, then everyone is affected by NATO's refusal to allow the tankers that carry the fuel to come into the country. So they refuse to let them come into the port. And I understand, although I have not read this report, but I understand that today the news is reporting that NATO has expanded the sanctions to include activities at the port, which then will include fuel and medicine. One Italian woman who decided to stay here after all of the other Italians were evacuated went to Italy in order to buy medicine for the hospitals, and the Italian government refused to let her bring the medicine back. So this is a different kind of sanction that is actually constitutes a war crime, because whenever civilians are targeted, war crimes are being committed. and war crimes are being committed on a huge scale here by NATO.
We're going to have to bring it to a close, but Congresswoman McKinney, I wonder if you could just let us know if people can get a chance to attend any presentations or showings of what you found when you come back, and is there a website or somewhere they can go to learn more information?
Brian Becker of International Answer has gratefully agreed to organize a series, a national tour, at which I can not only tell the story as an eyewitness, but also do some fundraising so that we can pay for the activities of the delegation, because we have to pay the individuals back who made this possible. So that, I believe, our first venue is Los Angeles on June 18th, and then I believe the following Saturday we will be in New York City. I believe that will be posted. I will send that out once it is confirmed, and you will get that information once it is confirmed for New York City. I believe it's the following Saturday.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. So we'll make sure we look out for that information and let our listeners know. Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, along with the delegation out in Libya, bringing us first-hand reports from the ground. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. 6:48, you're listening to Wake Up